Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. This is the first Power Hour that we've put out to HBXL customers, and the theme of tonight's is modern slavery awareness. We're doing different topics based on our conversations with a wide range of people across the industry, and this is one of the topics they've asked us to cover so that small businesses are made aware of what modern slavery is, what the potential implications are for their business if they're associated with it, and also get sources of support if they do identify modern slavery, victims of modern slavery in any projects they're working on. So we've got a series of slides which will be made available at the end of this. Fairly flexible format. If you want to wait to the end to ask a question, feel free. If something springs to mind right away, you can either interrupt me or type any questions in the chat function, which you'll see on the list there. And I hope you find it interesting. So thanks for coming in to listen to this. As I say, we're really trying to raise awareness of a range of themes the industry is trying to address, in addition to the technical skills that the HBXL team can help you with on the boot camps and through the call centre facility they operate as well. My name's Paul Burns. I've been working with HBXL since 2022, and in that time we've started skills boot camps. We're now operating in 10 areas of England, and the relationship with contractors every year gets stronger, which is why they keep asking us to do more new stuff, which hopefully you'll see the benefit of. Joanna's also on the call. She's the MD of the HBXL software business and the Skills Academy, which is where we deliver the boot camps from.
Thanks, Paul. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I was just going to say, because obviously, as well as the technical and the digital skills that HBXL builders, customers, prospective software users, etc., talk to us about is the general skills gaps that they've got in running their businesses. So we're kind of really pleased to be working with industry to help expand on the good technical stuff through some practical understanding of some of the other compliance pieces, which aren't necessarily as exciting, as the technical digital stuff, but they're really important to building companies, just like every other building company. So you might be thinking, why is modern slavery a topic that I should be thinking about? And it is really important for all building firms, no matter your size, to be thinking about. And obviously, Paul's going to be sharing all that with you today. So I'll shush and let Paul go on. But yeah, some really interesting stuff here to make you aware of, guys. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Joanna. So basically, we're just going to cover. Hang on, somebody's just joined us. Can you see who that is, Joanna?
Yeah, I can indeed. Okay, I'll let them in.
Brilliant.
All right then. I think Dave is joining the call, but he's quietly in the background. But if you want to pop your questions, you can unmute yourself. You've just joined us mid-program, so most people don't have cameras on today. So if you don't fancy it, that's absolutely fine. So we're just getting started with a few questions to ask ourselves, weren't we, Paul? So over to you.
Thank you. Hello, David. Thanks for joining us. I was just saying, this is one of the sessions we've been asked to put out to HBXL customers to help them raise awareness of some of the issues that are affecting the industry, not directly related to skills. And the first one is modern slavery, because construction's an industry that's particularly at risk. And the whole function of tonight is just to raise your awareness. Very flexible, David. So pardon me, if you have any questions, you can just type them in the chat, or you can just interrupt me, or you can wait to the end. And this is the agenda. Joanna's joined us, and she's the Managing Director of the HBXL Skills Academy. I've been working with Joanna since 2022 on different boot camps, and we've incorporated sessions on modern slavery, mental health, the circular economy, etc., at the request of contractors. Basically, we're just going to look at what modern slavery is, why are people at risk of it, some facts and figures, legal compliance, which can affect small businesses, right to work checks, which are a safety net for small businesses if they've got any doubt about somebody's legality to work on their project. Changes in legislation recently that can affect subcontractors. You can do as a business and an individual if you identify somebody's a victim of modern slavery, and some sources of support. The whole thing about these sessions is to reassure businesses that there's some pretty big topics, but the industry is very good at sharing information now, which is a relatively new culture. And we'll look at these sources of support at the end of the session. But as I say, any questions, feel free, type in the chat, or just interrupt me or wait to the end. So basically, modern slavery is exploiting vulnerable people through forced labour, coercion, or dodgy recruitment practices within the construction sector. Example of that is somebody puts an advert in a newspaper somewhere in Eastern Europe, offers thousands of pounds per week if you come to the UK. When you get to the UK, they take your passport, they'll put you through the CSCS card, they'll put you in a flat with maybe 20 other people, and they'll collect your wages through various financial things they've set up and give you 20, 30 quid a week maximum out of that. So it's basically trapping people in a system where they're completely dependent on the gang who are in control of them. Even with the changes since we left the EU, there's still a lot of migrant labour in the construction industry. A lot of these people are the most vulnerable to being victims of modern slavery. So there's 2.6 million people employed across the UK construction industry. That's a lot of people across a lot of different projects, different sizes, different timescales. Covers the whole country, literally. Coastal defence projects for rising sea levels on the coasts, other infrastructure projects to improve transport links across rural communities, everything you see in the cities, student accommodation, new hotels, etc., etc. So it's basically based on the fact that people can move from job to job, and that makes it easier to hide that they're victims of modern slavery because they're not on a site long enough for anybody to set up a proper relationship with them. But some of the court cases have shown how organised this stuff actually is, and equally how profitable it is. So if you're claiming 700 quid a week wages for somebody and paying them 20 quid, and you've got 20 or 30 people in that situation, within a year you've got a couple of million quid. And these figures have been mentioned in some of the prosecutions that have happened so far. The fact that there is so many subcontracting arrangements does mean construction is quite vulnerable, and temporary workers being in sites for 3 days, 1 week, 2 the next, and that can happen in any part of the country. It's so easy to do that if they've got a structured relationship with a recruitment agency. That's easy to control that. So again, people don't set up relationships with people who only meet over 2 or 3 days on a site. So it's easier for the gangs to hide the fact that these people are victims of slavery. Setting up false self-employment relationships As I say, a lot of it is based on bringing labour in from abroad. So again, if they are on a site for longer than normal, their English might not be very good, so their ability to communicate what happens to them, what is happening to them is limited by that alone. Still, some sites, some types of construction, particularly some domestic projects, landscaping, etc., the private customer pays the contractor cash in hand, so there's no record, and again that's easier for the person getting the cash to withhold it from the people actually doing the work, you know. When you look at the kind of culture in construction, hopefully you'll see, well, wait a minute, this does add up. So 3 years ago, there was a 134% increase in reports of labour exploitation. Now that can be because people are more aware of it. A lot of big companies are putting resources into doing advertising campaigns, awareness sessions on site. So the reporting of that, with that amount of increase in it, is maybe related to that. That it's been identified as a problem, and the industry is making it easier for people to recognise it and report it. And so it's now the third most reported sector for modern slavery cases in the UK. Agriculture's one, and nail salons are another one, bizarrely enough. So the big guys got to produce statements what they're trying to do to avoid modern slavery in their operations and their supply chain. So the supply chain on site is only one part of that. All the material and all the products that they buy from all over the world, you've maybe heard on the news about, you know, the use of slave labour in certain parts of China for solar panels. That's a huge issue. So the big companies, the Balfour Beatties, etc., they don't just say it's what happens on the site, it's everything they buy from source all over the world, you know. And then you know, there is a criminal justice implication that if a victim of modern slavery is on a site and the company know that their victims are that, you could be looking at a 60 grand fine per worker, which is a big hit, you know. So there are financial implications.
Can I just ask you a quick question, Paul? I was kind of surprised to understand that the £60,000 fine was no matter kind of what size your business is. Yeah. So even if you're not one of the larger firms and therefore having to produce this modern slavery statement, even if you're a small business, a micro and small business, and inadvertently perhaps, or advertently, kind of employ someone on the basis of you know, the methods that we're talking about today, you can still get that £60,000 fine. It's not just reserved for the big companies. So those 2 points are slightly, they're separate, aren't they? As a large firm, you have to have a modern slavery statement.
But if you're a small business and they find it on your site, you're still going to get the fine for it, yeah. It's that kind of reality, you know, and there's a lot of the policies the government have brought in since the election are designed to provide more work for local businesses on certain types of contracts, but also the result of that means they've got to be aware of their responsibilities. And it's that key word. If you know, if you don't know, but if you've checked the cards of the people on your site, any suspicion, you shouldn't have let them on in the first place, you know. So the more you can show that you were unaware of it, the less chance there is of the 60 grand fine. But the Home Office being the Home Office, if they think you're at it, you can believe yourself wide open for serious financial penalties, you know.
Yeah, and I think as well there's civil penalties as well, which can include obviously those you know, unlimited fines. I think beyond if actually There's repeat breaches, which I'm sure people viewing today, it wouldn't be in that category, but there's also up to 5 years prison, I think, if the employer knowingly hired someone without a right to work. So, and this is regardless of the business size. I think, as far as I understand, the Home Office doesn't differentiate between large corporations and small businesses when issuing these fines and what have you. So it's up to all companies, all employers, regardless of size, to make sure that they're doing some of the things that you're going to be talking about today. Proper right to work checks, record keeping, e.g. passport scans, visa docs, that kind of thing.
And
right to work checks.
It's all part of a process. So the right to work check, we've got to carry that out for the skills boot camps, haven't we? And we're not actually employing people, we're just putting people onto courses. So any government activity, the right to work check, especially with the issues around migration of all types. But for small businesses, you should be reassured that this stuff is fairly straightforward to carry out. The passport check, the driving license checks, things like that. And that just gives a small business reassurance that the individual is who they say they are, and therefore they can be incorporated onto their site without any worries about the stuff we've just discussed. But it's got, you don't want to leave it till after people are on your site. You want to get this done up front, so you've got complete confidence that if there is a raid, for whatever reason, you've got the evidence that you've carried out the checks that the government have asked you to do in advance. It's when you're trying to do things backwards, that's when you're leaving yourself wide open. And that's where these processes have to be at the first point of your operation before anybody starts work on your site. What kind of work is it you do, David? If you don't mind me asking.
Sorry?
What kind of work is it you do?
I do extensions and lock conversions and that, and refurbs. And I know, like the slavery thing, because where I am, I'm based in like Hayes on the edge of West London, and it's next to Southall, and we've got there's a house across the road from here, and I watched them building it going up at phenomenal speed, and there's 8 people on the roof. Yeah. There's they must be getting paid an absolute pittance. You know what I mean? Because, and I'm not being racist or anything like that, but they're like, here's like, because you bought a Southall, so Southall was like the main place for like sort of like the influx of Indians and all that in the 50s.
Yeah, in West London, I know well. Like 2 years ago.
Yeah, so like you've got a massive community, and beds in sheds. I'm not getting into something else here, but beds in sheds is a massive problem around here as well, because as soon as a house goes up for sale now, it's like you're not selling a home, you're selling a business, because you've got large back gardens, you've got driveways in between the house, and as soon as a house goes up for sale, people go in and they build a beds in sheds at the back, turn the house into multiple occupancy, and then it's like, if you come out of here in the morning now, I mean, on every street corner, there's sort of like there's big gangs of people waiting to be picked up. And and it is.
It's a visible thing. It's
and the thing is, it really impacts on me trying to sort of like sell my business, because they're undercutting everything.
That corner culture. That was how Irish immigrants get picked up every morning before cars come into the civil engineering sector. So the culture's been there as part of the industry. It's just different types of immigrants, isn't it? Yeah. And that's some of these case studies that the court cases of found out.
Because if you've got 8 people on a semi-detached, like on an extension on a semi-detached house, and you've got 8 people on the roof, what must the wages be on that? You should have three roofers up at the top.
Well, I think this is why it's really important, along with all sorts of other things that you no doubt do within your business, such as say health and safety, or how you waste management, that kind of thing. When you're quoting, you need to be really upfront in terms of, and this is what we do, this is our policy on X, Y, and Z. So for health, yes, for things like health and safety, but also for modern slavery, so that you're pointing out by return if your competitor hasn't got this approach or hasn't got this policy or isn't doing this stuff, then they are more than likely. So you're kind of like undermining by raising your own game, by showcasing what you actually do. And as I said before, it's the same as with things like health and safety. When people say, oh, they're so much cheaper, we haven't got scaffolding, because it's really expensive per week. If you're documenting you're doing it, you would hope an ethical customer, and one can only hope, but they would be asking, well, where is that then? Where are these mitigation measures for health and safety or whatever? Cool. Anyway, back to you.
Absolutely. So, no, it's a real concern in projects of all sizes. I mean, some of the court cases have just been absolutely horrific. I mean, one of them was so organised, they got a gang member to actually join the agency in the wages department, so she had control over what bank accounts these guys' money was going to, And millions and millions of pounds you're talking about. They get caught. But the companies who involved were all, there's a lot of legalities about why they weren't named, but you can just guess based on the projects the guys were working on. We're not talking about the kind of job you're talking about there, domestic customer, with 8 guys on a roof to blitz the job. This was, universities, national health, proper jobs across London. And still got away with it until it was basically a site manager was going round and he recognised a guy that was on a site the day before and he was hanging about the canteen picking up scraps of food. Just otherwise they were so organised they could probably still be getting away with it, because that's what they did. They moved the guys week to week around different sites, so nobody's picking up the fact that they've got the same clothes on every day, they're getting collected, But if you're going to basically put somebody into slavery, you've got to have a very ruthless, it's not a thing you would do for a laugh. You've really got to be committed to it. But when you see the sums of money, I think now that councils are starting to realise the cost of this sort of culture at every angle, because the guys you're talking about, who signs that off? Where's the insurance? Where's that?
I mean, like the same thing. Like it's like sort of like they're doing all the block work, and like sort of like me, I was bricklayer by trade, so like they was building a concrete block cavity wall, and it's all overhand. So they built the first floor through the joists on, and then like scaffold boarded the joists, and they're building it overhand right up to the top. So I mean, like with no scaffold at all until they got to the roof, and then they started putting the roof up. And I mean, like that sort of thing is like impacting on costs so much. Like, you're putting what they can build something for compared to you doing it legit. Like, it's massive. There's massive implications for me.
Would you ever consider reporting any of those if you were quite?
You know what? I did. The one around the corner where the scaffold was. Because not only that, it was a corner property on the corner of like sort of like the road. Now, if you've got a concrete block, you're talking about like, if it's wet and things like that, a 4-inch concrete block will probably be weighing around about just under 3 stone. So if you're leaning over, you've got a 100 mil like block internal skin. Then like now you've got 150 a lot of the time like cavity, and then if you're leaning over that much, you've only got to overcomes, and you're going through that wall and you're going down. And I mean, like sort of like if it lands on anyone on the street or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's not only that. Like being, if I was, I remember years ago, like having to do a couple of things like that. Like where the boss would tell you, and you just like, and you do it. But I mean, like this, like you'd have to do it, otherwise you get a load of stick and God. But that was, a little bit before health and safety really picked up. How dangerous. And I did. And I turned around and I took pictures and I sent it off, and they weren't interested. They turned around and they sent me things. They go, unfortunately, we won't be able to do anything.
Oh, that's quite shocking, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, and it is.
Yeah, it
Because,
is.
you know, I did it, and like people say to me, and I said, you know, I say to people, I've got, you know, I've got insurances, I've got like the you know, like the different sort of overheads that I've got. You know, I pay for like, you know, 3 lots of your software each year. You know, and like, those things I've got to pay for that. I've got to find the money to do it. You know, and
Yeah.
if those people are doing that without a scaffold till the last thing, till they
Yeah.
really got to put a scaffold up, then
Yeah.
they're undercutting it. And you just want somebody to come up, and then people will turn around and think, do you know what? We better not do that in case we get pulled. And then it puts everyone
Yeah.
back on the level playing field again.
Yeah. So obviously you can kind of report it in 2 ways. Obviously you can do it through the health and safety route, or you can report it as kind of suspected modern slavery, that side. So there's kind of different ways of reporting it. And from what it sounds like, that was the health and safety kind of side. From your perspective. But I've just popped a couple of details on there for the health and safety, sorry, the modern slavery side.
So
all right.
Charge.
No worries. All right. So do you want to? Obviously, there's a couple of people that haven't got cameras on there, Paul. So I don't know if you want to just carry on with. Did you? Sorry, the previous slide. I don't know if you're able to scroll back in terms of the right to work checks, or
so
and what that looks like.
Yeah. So it's basically original documents, David. You know, don't take any, you know, recycled photocopies. Just for your own reassurance that you've checked the original document. As simple as that. And as I say, if it means that somebody can't start work on your site for a day or whatever it is, that's well worth, because it means that you're not leaving yourself exposed. Related to this, there was a lot of court cases, maybe 10, 11 years ago, David, around false cards being issued. And again, the prison sentences were quite severe. And since those court cases about handing out fake cards, what you need to do to get a card is a lot stricter now. You know, you can't turn up for your CSCS without this official documentation, for example. And there was 2 guys up in Manchester got 4 years in the jail last year, I think it was, because they were giving out the answers to the CSCS test for people who couldn't speak English. So as soon as they get a court case and they analyse how a gang's done something, it's very quick to change the card system, etc., to make it every time you know you set up a system, somebody somewhere's going, I'm going to find a way around that, you know. But by and large, the safety net for employers is that if they do check the documentation and can demonstrate they've checked it, they have protected themselves, you know. But it's a real concern. And some of the cards that were in that court case I was telling you about, it was terrifying. I mean, imagine getting a fake crane card, you know.
Yeah.
You know, just think about that. We go, wow. You know, the 7-8 year prison sentences they got, and as I say, the card system is unrecognisable for 10 years ago, never mind 15 years ago, in terms of what you have to do to actually be able to take one, and rightly so, you know, because it's there to everybody. Just say if you're working in domestic, you've got members of the public walking past, you know.
Yeah.
So again, you know, is this extend the right to work checks for subcontractors? It's really just to make you aware it's easy to do. That's the main reassurance I want you to take away from this. It's not that you then have to spend X thousand to set up a brand new security system. The government have got this. You can get access to the government departments to check anything you need. That just keeps you right, you know. And it's linking in with jobs for local businesses, as I mentioned, David, because if you take the retrofit stuff, I think that's 16 billion that's going to be announced in the budget. A big focus of that is to make sure as many local contractors can get access to that framework in their area. And then those that can demonstrate that they're taking on local experienced workers plus local apprentices are in a position to take on more work to to justify that investment in their community. So different government departments are actually talking to each other now, which makes this quite a good time for a business like yourself that's set up to do the right thing. And you're not expecting to win every contract you go for, but you'd like a chance, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, it's that's what you're looking for, as you said very early on, David, and you know, checking local labour, making sure the cards are proper, and it's even got to the stage, you know, the card system. If your card expires tonight, you're taking a big chance trying to work with it tomorrow because you're off the system, you know. Whereas when cards came in, there was no smart card technology. You had 6 weeks either side of your expiry date to get your card renewed. So you had a 12-week window to renew your card. Whereas a card gets out of date at midnight tonight, you're not going back to work until it's been renewed, you know.
Yeah.
So again,
that means it's really important, isn't it, then, to take copies of passports, take copies of the cards, knowing they're recording somehow their expiry. We can be checking those. That's not even really a modern slavery point, is it, really? But I guess,
as well,
yeah, if people have an appropriate right to work for an extended period, their cards might expire at a certain point. So they might have a right to work for 2 years, 5 years, what have you. It might not necessarily be a forever situation. So it really starts with that right to work check of the passport. Is it a UK passport? And if it's not a UK passport, then getting a share code from them. And if they haven't got an ability to get a share code or don't know what the heck a share code is, it's unlikely, therefore, that they're going through a kind of a proper migration route. Because if you have pretty much any learner on our Skills Academy that's got an overseas passport, as soon as you ask for a share code, they're like, here it is. They already have it because they know that they want to work, they want to get trained, they want to be on the program. If they can't give it you, alarm bells would go off, because they should have it. Even people who've come here from overseas, such as, you know, Eastern Europe, you know, 10-15 years ago, they might actually have to still, you know, if you do that right to work check and their passport's still in date, gosh, do you get a 15-year? No, it's a 10-year passport, but if it was saying, you know, 9 years old or whatever, you would, you know, you still need to do that check if this is the first time that you're working with them, and then doing that visual, you know, face to face, if you can, on passport to ID. And it's faffy, but it doesn't take long. It really doesn't take long.
As Joanna said, there's QR codes and everything, David. So it is, and your phone is a computer now, isn't it? Let's, you know, everybody's got one of these smartphones of some kind. So a few minutes, and you've got that reassurance. And then again, this other responsibility. So basically, what they're trying to do is say that if your name's on the contract, you've got to show that you've checked everybody who's come onto your project. Simple as that. No matter what size you are. And that's it's a good business, you know, because you can tell customers, you can guarantee who's in their house doing this bit of work under your name, you know, and it's just about reassurance for everybody. Yeah. So even the agencies have to do that. The process for registering for any recruitment agency is pretty much standard now, you know, passport, driving license, utility bill, bank information, obviously, because they're going to be paying you. And if you do use an agency, you've still got to double check that. And I think a lot of people will be reassured, as in the workers, that you're actually making that effort. You know, because you're making a statement saying, I'm checking that you're fit and proper to come onto my job, and if you are, you're welcome, you know. But as Joanna said, it's the fact how quick this is to do is the, you know, what small businesses should be aware of. This is easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's nothing compared to like a risk and method statement or anything like that. It's user friendly. You know, so what can you do as a small business? I can send you some videos that the big guys have made, David, around modern slavery, as I mentioned, to see people hanging about canteens looking for scraps of food. getting picked up, not being able to, engage with people on the site, getting moved 3 days here, 2 days there. And I think that's anything. What's happened since 2012, since joint ventures? Big companies, as you know, David, never spoke to each other. They were very defensive, very isolated, kind of gang mentality. Construction was like, but now they're on HS2 together, or a highways project, or anything of that size. They've got to share everything with each other, and the resources we use are part of that culture to change. You've got to talk to people, otherwise things will never get better. But you've got to produce a modern slavery statement every year, which again is straightforward to do. There's resources towards the end of this set of slides. Cash was always king in construction, but I remember working in London in 1990, and I get paid in the pub.
Yeah.
You went to the pub on the Thursday to get your wages. I'm sure that's something thousands of people can remember. I just don't know anybody that, even some of the guys I know. I live in Croydon, David, so I know a lot of roofers and blah blah blah, and they can't do anything for cash now because of the insurance they've got to show to get the work in the first place. They just don't even think about it. It's just not part of the. Maybe a painter and decorator can get away with cash in hand because there's no equipment getting involved, But a roofer or a spark or a heating engineer, it's just not even part of the conversation now, which is good. Things move on.
Yeah.
You can't just say it was okay to drink 5 pints at lunchtime and then go and jump a dumper. Because that was the way it was. So that was the way it was. Thankfully, it's moved on significantly since. Loads of stuff around how you can spot the signs of people being victims of slavery. If you're on a project and it has been identified by somebody other than you, just make sure people are confident coming to you in the first place. Because it just terrifies me about construction that. People are prepared to starve people when they're doing physical work. You just think how risky that is, how dangerous construction can be. Never mind if people are actually starving.
Yeah.
There's concentration will be all over the place. Just absolutely horrific. As I say, you're dealing with ruthless people. If you're prepared to enslave people, you must have a very ruthless mindset. With the very nature of that. So basically, Cabinet Office policy is supervisors and managers check everybody, their personal ID and their construction credentials, and the card checker system's so easy to use. Again, depending on the size of the site, toolbox talks, these videos that Balfour Beatty etc. produced. I've been on a couple of sites where they've been played in the canteens, and the place is deadly silent at the end of them, because I think a lot of people recognise things on those videos that they've seen in previous sites, But until somebody points something out to you, you're busy yourself. Nobody's on a building site to be a policeman. You've got to be. You're there to do a job. But it's when you see it and you read the actual black and white court evidence, you go, Jesus, I was on a site. I think that happened there. I think that happened there. And making it easier to report is one way of making sure that it can be dealt with, But it is becoming. I mentioned the retrofit stuff. I've got meetings with some of the London boroughs in the next couple of weeks, and they'll be asking local businesses for policies on modern slavery, mental health, etc. And again, the reassurance, if you're looking at moving into one of these frameworks, David, is that 5 years ago, these policies would cost you $3,000 a pop, because you'd have to bring in a consultant for each one of them. You can get them through the sustainability school free of charge now. So part of this policy to try and make it easier for small businesses to get steady work on government funded projects, And the retrofit is particularly relevant for you, David, because obviously big housing estates, that will be your big guys, that will be Waits, United Living, etc. But if Mr. and Mrs. Smith are looking to get solar panels or insulation, they're not going to phone them. They're going to be looking for a register in their area who's on the government framework, you know. And that's businesses like you that are used to working in people's houses, can talk to people, know how to behave. So it's a big market, and I think at least 50% of that 16 billion will be on that basis. Individual householders applying for grants, and then they can only give the grant only goes to companies that are on the Trustmark system, you know.
So, Paul, just super quickly before we move on, then, just and wrap up in a minute. But I was just going to say, in terms of small building companies and their subcontractors. So obviously, your employees, you want to be doing those right to work checks, you know, things like that as you take them on as employees. But obviously, a large portion of the kind of labour is going to be subcontract. So I guess today you don't have to check every single individual worker of the subcontractors, you know, and their right to work. But what you really want to be doing and hot on today is the, you know, request for policy, you know, cited policy of the subcontractor. So what are you doing about it? So can I see your policy? And then actually include that within your own kind of clauses in your contract, so that they have to have that in place. So you've got that kind of anti-slavery approach throughout. So even if you're not individually looking at those subcontractors' IDs and doing their share code checks, all that kind of thing, because they work for someone else after all, but you have to be checking the policies are in place for that subcontractor entity themselves, and that they're doing it, and that you can have sight of it if you wanted to, if you wanted to check. So it's a funny one until the regs change. I guess that was saying end of 26, 27. It's a little bit unclear, but today, to make sure that your own subbies are doing the right thing, it's about them having the right policy and you being assured that they're doing the right thing without you having to do the right checks themselves.
It doesn't stop. You're right, Joanna. So if you're the general builder and you're bringing an electrical contractor in, you've got to see their stuff. If you're bringing a plumbing subcontractor in, you've got to check. Everybody's got to show the same information. And as I say, it can build up reassurance with those guys, knowing that you're making that effort, you know. Because
even if you're not the direct employer, you can still be held up and accountable if exploitation is occurring in your supply chain within your project. So there's this little bit of a gap between, well, should I be checking or not checking? But ultimately, you're accountable as the project kind of lead, if you like. So you need to make that check with the subcontractor. Anyway, I took us on a little merry segue there. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I'll send you links to this stuff, David, but Balfour Beatty have a 25-page document that I can send you free of charge. I don't mean I was going to charge it. The fact that companies at Balfour Beatty put these documents out so that small businesses can see how they do it and adapt to suit their own circumstances. Yeah. And this stuff about HS2, now, HS2 are the main contractor, if you like. They buy in all the work. Now, there's four alliances working between London and Birmingham. SCS is Strabag, Castaigne, Skanska. Align has got McAlpine, another couple. EKFB is IFAG, Kier, Ferrovio, and BAM. And BBB's Balfour Beatty Vinci. So that's what I mean about these companies working together. Makes it easy for them to share stuff now. Yeah. Show how new that is. One, the first big joint venture after the Olympics was the Aberdeen bypass, and it was a joint venture between Balfour, Carillion, and Galliford Try. Now, it was the most expensive project in the UK at the time, 2012, and it was the first time those three companies had worked together. So they had that. I'm not going to tell him anything because he works for Carillion. Yeah. Right. So now they don't even have an option David, because if HS2 say to Kia, Balfour Beatty need to see your fire safety policy because yours is the best, it's got to be shared within half an hour, you know.
Yeah.
So 12 years changing the way the big guys operate is now starting to filter through, because everything they do you can access free of charge. Any document about waste management, any document, pardon me, about mental health, anything you're going to be asked to provide as a business, you can. And they actually tell. I'm not telling you this and saying this is us doing it on the fly. They actually stand up and say we want everybody to copy us, because that's the only way the whole industry will benefit, you know. So it's a huge culture change for them to be in a position where they're so open about what works, and that's the main resource for businesses like yourself, the Supply Chain Sustainability School, which coincidentally was set up in 2012. Now, any topic you need information on is on there, free of charge. And if you just want to Google it and then look at the partners page, you'll see what I mean. Everybody you can think about gives the Sustainability School money. Those contractors up there, plus Network Rail, NHS, universities, everybody that buys construction and delivers construction puts their money into this so that businesses like you can pick on good practice to help you. And it's a huge culture change. I remember one of the guys in one of our first boot camps, David, up in Lancaster, and he was getting work from Savills, you know, the big property company.
Yeah.
But it was below a threshold where he didn't have to be an official supplier. The area manager had a discretionary fund that he could buy in work, say up to 10 grand without going through the full, you know, becoming a thing. But he did well, and they said, look, we've got a lot of work here, but you need to go onto it. And he was a pen and paper guy, you know, in his 50s. And he phoned me and I said, well, look, just go home, get yourself a cup of tea and phone me, and we'll talk about it. So I actually sent him a document I got for Balfour Beatty, and he actually thought I'd stolen it, David. Right? He was panicking. Where did you get that? Why are you sending it to me? I'll get into trouble. I said, no. I said, this is what this is about. It's to share good practice, you know. And that's the only way the industry will get better, is if people can access information about what's good out there and just copy it, you know. So all the case studies are there for you, you know.
I've popped a couple of links. Sorry, Paul, talking over you then. I've just popped the supply chains for the main link, but the second link there is actually all their online training. So I've just filtered, for example, to modern slavery. There's another 5 different modules on modern slavery itself. If you looked at that and say health and safety or sustainability, or equality and diversity inclusion, there's all sorts of things in there, and they're all free of charge, those sessions, and you get the certificate as well. So in terms of like your CV, if you're looking at working with anyone else, whatever, you can say like, we've got this, I have attended this, we have done this awareness building within our business. So any of your staff as well can or managers can you use that as well. It's a great resource, I think.
Yeah, as I say, just proof of that change in culture, David, from working in isolation, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, I just pressed on the link and now I've lost you.
Oh, we're behind.
Yeah, well, it says I'll get back to you.
If you minimise the web page, we're behind it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you can filter it. You can just search. I mean, there's loads of different training material, but if you filter it, like as I say, I just typed in the search bar modern slavery, and then 5 videos come up of all sorts of stuff to do with that.
And that, even if you get into the retrofit section on there, David, you'll see what I'm talking about, the opportunities for small builders once this money gets allocated. There was, and again, as well as your skills as a builder, it's having all these policies around that can help you get onto those frameworks, you know.
Yeah.
So there's plenty there on an ongoing basis as well. So we'll, you know, the main themes about this are that when you click on those links, when you get the slides, it's, well, you see it on a daily basis by the sounds of it. So I'm not telling you anything brand new. But that gangs of men standing in a corner getting picked up in a van, that's a sign. As I say, they're very ruthless people. When you read that case study about the one in London when they put one of their gang in the agency so she could control the bank accounts away, just
it's proper organised crime. It's proper organised crime.
100%. If you're prepared to bring people thousands of miles and put them into a house with 25 others. And
it's no different when they do it when they do it like sort of like prostitution and all that. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I get involved again, I didn't get involved in it, but I was working in Glasgow. It was the cannabis farms and the houses, David, and it was Vietnamese, and they were so ruthless. I tell you how the first house in Glasgow got caught. The police helicopter was out one night, and it was snowing. And there was these two houses in a street.
No snow on the roof.
No snow on the roof. But then when they went into the house, they'd actually weighed the guy who was in the house, David, and said, right, you don't come out of this house for 6 months. Yeah. And then they worked out he would need tinned food, he would need this. They worked out how much he could, the minimum he would need to survive on. Just absolute ruthlessness to say a human being will live like that for as long as I need them. To make the money, So it's the exact same principle. Somebody's prepared to use people to make as much money as they can, As I say, it'll only change. The only thing that changes is legislation, and then people realising that buying work in from people who can't prove who's doing the work is a false economy at some level. So the retrofit sector time now, because the government are putting this extra money in. It's been a disaster so far because there's been very little oversight of who's carrying out the work. So now they're saying, right, bang, you want to go into the framework, you need to get into Trustmark. And to be on Trustmark, as well as your capabilities as a builder, you must have a modern slavery policy, a mental health policy, etc., etc. And then that's a start point, But it's real brutal stuff. But as I say, it's happening. So we're bound to make businesses aware of it, That's just an example of the Balfour Beatty statement. I'll send you the full link. But they've got you right through everything, manufacturers to actual people working on site, The fact they're prepared to share this stuff, as is every other company that was on that list, Skanska, BAM, Morgan Sindall, you name it. Part of this, share what works to keep the industry moving in the right direction. And that again, just to show how the school's grown. There was 12 companies put their name to it, and now there's over 220 when you look at that partner slide. Webinars on modern slavery, any case studies, how the gang have been discovered, what you can do on your site to, so that's a great culture that the industry doesn't stop, as you know, anyway. Once they identify something good, they share it and then try and make it better. So yeah, your eligibility checks, don't think they're negotiable. Protect yourself and the reputation of your business. Loads of stuff there about how to keep up to date with this topic and everything else. Be a charge, that's the key thing. Construction Inquirer comes in every day, 10 to 9. You just click on the website, type in your email, and you get a bulletin every morning about what's going on out there. For example, and then we don't have any boot camps in London, unfortunately, at the minute, David, but that might change.
I've done your CAD thing.
Right.
I've got the CIT. I've got the CITB funded one.
All right, okay, yep. Sorry, I only deal with the boot camps, got you. And then these other ones are starting, but what keeps me going with these is that anytime I ask one of the big companies for input, they're more than happy to help, you know, which again shows that change in mentality from I'm not going to talk to you because you don't work for the same company as me. But yeah, there's a lot of support for you, David, and then obviously you've got our contact details if you want to discuss anything after this, you know.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, it's sort of no, I've sort of got an idea of something. I mean, like sort of like with me myself, mainly sort of like the people like that I'm employing are either sort of like people I've had long standing with.
Yeah.
And you know, 'cause it's only a very small business.
Sure.
So it's usually sort of, you know, like there's a couple of different sparks that I use, a couple of different chippies, a couple of different roofs. You know what I mean? So they're all sort of like, but yeah, no, but it's nice to get a little bit of a rounding on things because I do see the other things happening. You know, I see the slavery, and I see the, like I say, the impact it has on sort of like financially people like me. And how you want to see it improve.
Oh,
Yeah. It sounds ruthless, but you've got to kind of, you know, utilize this as a way to premiumize your business and set it up above these other folks.
It's with the changing the way, like, you know, like the building, like sort of like control are involved, you know, for the last couple of years, how it's changed. And, you know, like sort of like, you know, I started to use it as a bit of a tool of like, look, I'm going to be about, you know, I can sign, you know, everything's above board, and like I can sign these forms, you know, because sort of like, you know, like to sign it off at the end now. I mean, like that, the whole thing with, you know, again, with it's the thing with cash. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, it was a cash soaked business for a long time, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course it was.
Still got people like trying to offer you cash to do things now, but I mean, even that, if you've got to turn around and sign all the documentation with London Building, you know, like with building control, and you've got to put your name on the frame for it, I mean, that will start reducing like the amount of cash jobs, and it's got to be put. You know, I find that I've got to put it to the customers, like, look, you know, like you've got duty of care. If someone falls off your roof and they didn't have a scaffold and they've done it that cheap because they've done, like sort of like a few years ago in Brentford, bloke, we'd already dug him out. Pardon my French, but we'd already dug him out shit once because we was doing something up the road, and like the builders he had come in, like they just completely fixed it up. We helped him out, and then he split out with his missus and he moved, and he wanted like the chimney down and some like some stills put in, all stuff like that. So I priced it all up properly, allowed for like the scaffolding and all that. And he come back to me and he said, like, they can do it for half the price. And I said, well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to be back on the phone. And he said, I know, I probably will. Sure enough, he was. Like what they had done, like sort of like, you know, it ended up costing twice as much because he picked everything up. But like I went round to see how they could do it when it was raining one day and I couldn't do what I was doing. So I thought I'd drive past and have a look. And of course, they take the chimney out. There's no scaffold. They go up there with a ladder and standing behind the chimney, taking the chimney down. And like, you know, if you explain to somebody, if they fall off the roof, you've got like the homeowner's got a duty of care. They know that if somebody's doing it that cheap and they've got a scaffold up, then
of course there's a reason for it.
People need to know that. You know?
Yeah. I think you've got to end up packaging all this really good stuff that you're doing, obviously around quality, health and safety, modern slavery, how you look after your people, the project management expertise, as you said, and the ability to sign things off. Got to bring it together as part of this really strong portfolio of you doing what you're doing, and this is why the price is the price, and it's not, you know, we're not cheap and cheerful because we have running a legitimate business got all this cost.
Do you know what I found? Like, because I've done the CAD course with like Thomas Brooks, and then it was like on one session I can't think, his name might have been Ben or something. It was he done the presentation.
Oh yes.
And he done the presentation. And do you know what? I'd gone to a job the day before, and when we started talking, he said, "Have you ever done a presentation?" And after listening to it, I realised I'd done a presentation the day before, but I'd gone there and I wasn't prepared. I hadn't I'd gone along with a package that I put together for someone else and said, look, this is what I'll do for you, instead of doing it and going there and actually. I found that one of the best, because like there's lots of builders and stuff like that. Me, I've never worked in an office in my life. You know,
No,
so you don't get that sort of like, you know, like as you would in a structured company where like sort of like research and development, you know, like it's a big thing, and like sort of like so you don't get that. So like when you get something like that and you turn around and like bang, you know what I mean? Like sort of like that was very helpful. There's a little bit of feedback there for your skills.
cool. Well, yeah. Well, thank you. If you'd like any more support from Ben on that, just shout. You know, to bring anything together off the back of this. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to help, and I will pass that feedback on, because obviously I think there's wider skills to gain from the boot camps rather than just the technical that you come into it. So.
You know, like there's so many people like me who you turn around and you think like, oh, you know what? Because I've never worked in an office. So anything I do, I'm pretty good with the CAD, I'm pretty good with the estimated stuff and all stuff like that. And but it's very hard, you know, like for a builder. You've never been in an office. You've been hands-on tools and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
No,
I'm getting to an age now where I've got to get off the tools.
Indeed. And that, do you know what? To manage the business again, it all comes back down to that kind of the same thing about that kind of premiumization to fund you to be that manager, that quality kind of oversight. And not be
charging this. Don't waste the bottom, because just to finish that, David, I was at a thing in London about district heat networks and the discussion. There's a pension fund there. They've got 40 billion to invest in that. But one of the financial panels was around retrofit. Now, within 10 years, you'll not be able to sell a house or buy a house unless you've got the ABC.
Yeah.
Now, so at the minute, people are going, well, if I buy a house that's DEF and I've got the same house that's ABC, I'm going to buy ABC because it's not the kind of thing people want to spend money on. They buy a house, will spend money on a kitchen, a conservatory, blah, blah, you know, aesthetic. They're not going to spend it in structural. So if that goes financial, that you can't buy a house or you can't sell a house if it's DEF energy rate, that's transformational, and that's when it's reputable businesses like you that'll be the first a call for insulation, for solar, you know, for the whole thing, because the companies who are on that government list, the Trustmark, will be the only point of call. So they've found so far that because there's been no oversight, there's 23,000 houses across England that have to be re-insulated because it was just cowboy stuff, you know. Take money and run. So now they're looking for that local presence, for that local reassurance that I'm here, be it whatever part of the country we're working with them in. You've got that reputation, and this whole range of services is there to make sure that you can benefit it as much as possible, because without businesses like you, that work's not going to happen. Simple as that. But it's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work in your area.